Welcome to NCIX Tech Tips. Today we're going to be having a look at Diablo 3 performance with Intel's Ivy Bridge CPUs using onboard video and comparing that to the performance you can get from a dedicated graphics card, even one that's in the $150 range. Now, we were filming our episode about the Vesta 3190, so this is a $1,000 gaming rig from NCIX, and we were kind of thinking, well, okay, Diablo 3 is sort of a hot game right now. There's a few people playing it sort of in the world. And how would it perform with an Ivy Bridge, like gaming level system, you know, all ASUS and Corsair parts, all that good stuff, with and without a dedicated graphics card. So we've got a 3470 CPU in here, 8 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte boot drive, as well as a 500 watt power supply, an ASUS Z77 motherboard, and an ASUS GTX 560. That's a non-TI, so it's only around 150 bucks after a mail-in rebate usually. So how does the Ivy Bridge onboard GPU, which is way better than the old Sandy Bridge one, actually stack up to a dedicated graphics card? Is it worth it to spend the extra 150 bucks even in, honestly, not that graphically demanding games like Diablo 3? Let's have a look. So for our benchmark, we kept things pretty simple. We're right at the beginning of the game because there's some kind of weird glitch where Slick's account isn't working at all for some reason, and all his characters are gone on this video. So we start out right at the very beginning. We run fraps, and we're taking just the average FPS that we're achieving. Now, we did let the game auto-detect what settings it's running at, which means that with the dedicated graphics card, we're running at all high detail settings in 1080p, and with the onboard video, we're running at 720p. Now, as much as we would have loved to run them at equivalent settings, you're going to see when we show you the performance numbers why that wasn't possible. So, I mean, think of it in terms of this way. When you're budgeting out for how much performance you want to get out of your gaming system, you can look at it in terms of, oh, well, $150 is $150 more on a graphics card than it would have been if I was using onboard. So that's like infinity more dollars in terms of your budget. But if you think of it in terms of the system budget, if you're spending about $1,000 bucks, $150 on a graphics card is only about 15% of your budget. So I think what you'll see is that by spending 15% more on your gaming machine, you're going to get a much more satisfactory sort of gaming experience. So I want to do a quick image quality comparison of what we got with 1080p versus 720p. So I want Slick to do an overlay here. And what we're going to do is we're going to switch right from looking at the 1080p version that's running on our dedicated graphics card to this same scene running on the integrated GPU. So here you can see that the general detail level, I mean, it's lower, but it's not that much lower. However, the jaggies are significantly more noticeable. That is, the aliasing or the jagged lines on any diagonal or curved lines. So does the onboard graphics provide an acceptable gaming experience? I would say, you know what, it's playable, but I personally wouldn't enjoy it. We're running at about 22 FPS. This is with no extra characters on screen really to speak of, you know, no mobs coming after you or anything like that. Do you need a dedicated graphics card for Diablo 3? I guess the answer is yes. Do you have to necessarily go all the way to a GTX 560? Probably not. Something like a 550 Ti is going to be more than adequate. We were getting about 90 FPS with the 560. So I think that pretty much covers what we wanted to talk about today. Oh no, let's show performance graphs. So in conclusion, our 560 performs by the most conservative possible measurements about 5 times better than the 3470 onboard. But bear in mind that the integrated graphics were running at 720p and the dedicated graphics were running at 1080p. So thank you for checking out this little episode on why Diablo 3 is probably running on your onboard graphics, but also that you probably shouldn't be running it on your onboard graphics. Thank you for checking out this episode of NCIX Tech Tips, and don't forget to subscribe.